welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I've got another special guest episode. I sat down and had a lovely conversation. Oh my gosh, I just had such a great conversation with Steve Gamlin. Steve is going to share his story about losing his soulmate and his life with her and without her. And I won't spoil too much, but there's some great conversations about how these people we've lost might still be in our lives all around us. So stay tuned for that. Before we dive in, I have exciting news. I have merch now. Why not? It sounded fun. So you know how I end every episode with your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, grief doesn't always have to suck. Wouldn't it be fun to have that on a t-shirt? Well, guess what? You can. If you go to nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast, I have a whole page there now dedicated to this show. For a while, it was just a link, but now it's an entire page. I have links to books and other things from guests I've had on the show and my link to my shop with merch. I've got a t-shirt, I've got a journal, there's a mug and stickers. That's what I've got. If there are other things you want to see, if you want a tote bag, I don't know, just tell me. I'm open to feedback. I just put those things out there to see what happens in the world and see if anybody wants some merch with my logo on it for the Good Grief podcast. So please go check that out. And also check out that webpage. Like I said, there's some great links on there. They are affiliate links. So I do get if you want to support me and you want to buy yourself a fantastic book from one of my podcast guests, that's a great way you can support both of us. So, and if you want to support me further, as always, you can go to patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get all sorts of great benefits. For more, you get early access to this podcast, and you might get some shout outs. So patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. All right. But without further ado, I'm so excited for you guys to hear this episode. So we're going to get right into it. Here is my conversation with Steve Gamlin. All right. Hello. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in this week. I am super excited to introduce to you my guest for this week, my new dear friend, Steve Gamlin. Steve, I'm going to give you a minute. I want you to introduce yourself, tell my listeners a little bit about you and why you are here today.
Sure. Thank you, Nikki. I am a speaker. I've enjoyed being a speaker, positivity and visualization for the past 20 years. Have authored 4 books so far. Enjoyed a 10-year radio career and a 7-year stand-up comedy career. And for 6,386 days, I got to be in love with my soulmate, the woman of my dreams, until she passed away this past December. And the story of how we fell in love has gotten me on Oprah's XM satellite radio network. Ooh. Around 2010, 2011, 4 times. So it was an amazing story, and I miss her every day. So that's why I'm here.
Oh, wow. So this is a newer grief then.
It is
very fresh.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? Now's the time. I want to hear the story. Please tell us your story of how you fell in love.
Yeah. Well, we went to high school together. We graduated in 1986 and then didn't see each other for, as it turns out, a little over 21 years. And in that time, I had my radio career. I had my first marriage, which ended in divorce around 22 years ago. My radio career also exploded or imploded at that time, as did any shred of financial stability. I blew my entire life up in a short window of time. And as I sifted through the ashes, I did a lot of journaling, did a lot of reading, and I just made an agreement with myself. I only wanted to fall in love one more time in my life. Real love. And I spent several years working on becoming the best version of myself that I could become, the type that would have an idea of what his perfect partner, who his perfect partner would be, and also who I would have to be to even attract that perfect partner. So I spent a lot of time. And in early 2007, by then I had learned the science and the art of visualization. I was actually teaching it to other people. And that was the year I said, I'm going to find her, whoever she may be. And I was actually building that relationship on my vision boards. And in early June of '07, I wrote in my journal, I am ready to fall in love. And on June 16th, I got an email from someone named Tina. And the thundering herd of squirrels in my head distracted me. And I almost deleted the email. And the next day I opened it, and it was Tina from high school, on whom I'd had a crush for 3 years but never asked out. And she said, hey, I live in Florida now. I saw your name online. We should keep in touch. And I answered the email, and she sent me her phone number. And a couple of days later, I called. And the first words I heard out of her mouth in her classically sarcastic, amazing voice was, it's about time you called. And over the course of the following 4 weeks, by phone call, email, and text, she wouldn't send me a picture of herself, and she had zero social media footprint. I started to have feelings for her again. And on July 21st, she sent me a message. Can I tell you something if you promise not to freak out? And I texted back, sure. She said, here's how I felt about you back in high school. Here's how I felt when I saw your name online, when you answered my email, when I heard your voice. And she typed 143. And I Googled it, and that's basically text for I love you. 1 letter, 4 letters, 3 letters. And I answered back, I love you too. And we've been in love ever since. A month after that, she flew up to New Hampshire to visit her grandmother who was having a surgery. And that was the first time I got to see her in over 21 years, and just instantly fell in love with her all over again.
Oh,
And we were inseparable for 17 and a half years.
oh my gosh. I'm like oozing right now for,
Yeah.
the people watching the video of this. I'm just like over here being a girl. That is so beautiful. And the
Thank you.
fact that, you apparently both had those feelings that time, but then, were apart and found each other later. Like, to me, that just speaks volumes about you found each other at the time you were supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
As someone who also is on her second marriage, my husband and I are absolutely soulmates, and we always kick ourselves like, God, because there's a chance we hung out with a lot of similar people in our early 20s. We very easily could have met at some point and just not remembered it. I'm like,
Yeah.
why couldn't we gotten together back then? And I just remind him like, because we weren't meant to. We were different
Yeah.
people back then too. So, oh,
Yeah.
what a
And
beautiful story.
Tina did inform me, because I said, we haven't spoken or seen each other in 21 years. She goes, you don't remember the high five? Now, the high five was a restaurant and a bar in
Oh,
the town where we grew up. And I said, no. She said, yeah, we're about 24, 25 years old. And I was in there with whoever she was dating at the time and another couple. I said, I don't remember it because I never went to bars. I never hung out at bars. And she said, yeah, I walked up to the bar to get our drinks, and you turned and looked at me and said, hey, snob. I said, wait, that does sound like me, because I would have said that jokingly,
yeah.
because Tina would always have tunnel vision. She just didn't interact. She was very private.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, now I remember kind of that. And she said, and I really liked you even then, and I wish I could have gone home with you instead of the jackass I was with. And I reminded her again, just like in high school and just like then, it would not have been right. The timing wouldn't have been right. Emotionally, I was about 9 at that time.
Hmm.
Um, I'm about 12 now, which is better, but it just wouldn't have been right. Although she
Yeah.
said she remembered that so vividly, because she said, I smiled so big that you were there.
Aw. Oh, that's so beautiful. I don't even know where to go, but so with that, since you had that connection many years prior, and then when you reconnected, do you feel like in some way, form during that time you were not connected, that you were still connected? Some, you know what I mean? You had some type of connection that was there, even though neither one of you realized it?
She was a great memory of a great friend who
Mhm.
was very sarcastic and funny. And the reason I never asked her out in high school is because I thought she would say no. And another thing that she said, she goes, you asked me to the prom senior year. I said, I don't remember that. I said, because I always said I never asked you out. She goes, well, you did. And I said, see, you said no. So, and she goes, ask me why I said no. Why did you say no? She goes, because you immediately said, just as a friend, which was my really cheap guy cop out thing.
Mhm.
And she said, because I cared about you more than just a friend. She goes, that's why I said no.
Oh.
But she was always just a memory of a really close friend. And
Mhm.
we were just hung out together a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all those years later, it's funny now, I just turned 57. And, people would say, if you could tell your 20-year-old self something or your 25-year-old self something in 3 words, what would it be? And I've always, since we got together, I've always said the same 3 words. Always remember Tina.
Hmm.
Just to remember her.
Yeah.
And that's, I wouldn't want to give myself any more to go on than that,
Okay.
but just say, always remember Tina
Yeah.
so that when she shows up, you remember her. And
I
I did.
I love that. So, and then you reconnected and you were together, you said 17 years?
17 and a half years. Yeah.
17 and a half year. Or you said exactly how many days? I missed that. It was 6,000.
6,386 days
I think
from
that's
the,
beautiful that you know that number.
yeah,
That
from
you
the day
have.
that we connected by that email to the day that she passed. Of course, my number is much higher than that now of days that I'm head over heels in love with her, but that was us
Yeah.
together was
Right.
6,386
Right.
days.
Do you still feel a connection to her now?
Oh gosh, yeah, she's here in the house still. And when she passed away, we were in London for a week-long vacation in early December.
Oh.
We left New Hampshire on the evening of Friday, December 7th. We landed in England, got to our hotel at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and she passed away Monday morning at 9 a.m.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
But she's here. It
yeah.
took me 2.5 weeks to get out of England. Everything is so different there.
Oh yes. I actually was in England in London in September last year. So it yes, it's very different.
Yeah,
And I imagine like just the logistics of having to deal with something like that internationally. So
yeah.
especially while grieving.
Shaking and shattered is how I
Yeah.
describe I was alone for 5 days there, 3,000 miles from home until my sister flew 5,000 miles to come over. But I essentially had to deal with everything. I mean,
Yeah.
the trauma of finding her in the room, the trauma of working with a hotel employee trying to resuscitate her with CPR until the EMTs got there, watching them for an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
just the trauma of that I was just literally shaking and shuddering
Yeah.
for most of the 5 days. But she had been telling me for several years. And of course, we just had this amazing relationship. She was sitting at her end of the couch after dinner, and I was sitting at mine. And she would look over every once in a while. And this happened a number of times. And she'd say, you realize I'm going before you, right? And
Mm.
me being me and our style of communication, I'd look at her, I say, why do you get to go first? And she would always say the same thing in a soft voice. I don't want to be here without you. To which I would answer, so I don't get a choice. And she would look at me and she'd go, no. And she would turn right back at the TV and just very nonchalant.
Hmm.
And as I look back over conversations like that, that's
Yeah.
also how she told me one night we're watching a TV show where there was some completely drama-filled family just annihilating the sanctity of a funeral. And she looked at me and said, don't you dare stick me in a box and let people gawk at me. I want to be cremated.
Hmm.
I was the only person who knew this, which
Yeah.
presented its own difficulties when I had to explain that to some people. And
Sure.
the day before she passed, though, here's how she was already being my angel.
Oh.
For the first time in 17 and a half years, I asked her, hey, babe, what's the password for your phone? Because we took a picture of the building across the street from our hotel in London because it looked like Nakatomi Plaza from the movie Die Hard. And there's this classic line from a local DJ who says, it ain't Christmas till you see Hans Gruber fall off Nakatomi
Yep.
Plaza.
Yep.
We walked out and I looked at it and I started laughing and I used her phone to take a picture. Well, that night I asked her, hey, babe, what's the password for your phone? Never asked before. And thank God I did because the hotel reservation, the airline flights home,
Oh
the
my
limo
God.
from Boston airport to Manchester to home was in there, her family's phone numbers. the information for the travel insurance policy that I wasn't even aware she had taken out,
Mm-hmm.
which paid for her embalming and her transport home
Mm-hmm.
directly. I asked her the day before she passed.
Oh my,
And that is how I survived,
I got
was with
goosebumps.
her phone. So she was already looking out for me, and
Yeah.
she's here in our house, and she's already shown me several times that she's here.
Yeah. So I just want to, for my listeners, because I harp on this all the time about having your wishes known and making sure people understand what you want and what you need and where to find things in the case that you die unexpectedly, because it happens. And you have just told a fantastic example of that. My husband knows the password to my phone. I know the password to his phone, which is so important because our whole lives are on these stinking little devices right here. Like
Yeah.
literally our whole lives are right there. So make sure somebody knows the password to your phone, people. So so I want to circle back to something you just mentioned, and because I love talking about this with, and everybody I know loves sharing these stories. How is she making herself known to you?
When we arrived back home, of course, walked into the house, here's the first thing she did to protect me. One of us, probably me, on our way out the house the day we left, bumped the stove and turned one of the burners on just slightly. So for 2.5 weeks, our house was slowly filling up with propane.
Oh my God.
And when my sister and I landed back in Boston, and my best friend of 40 years came and picked us up, and brought us home, I walked into the basement. Of course, nobody could get in the house while I was gone. I didn't even have a key. I had a garage door opener with me in England, so nobody could even get here.
Hmm.
I walked in and I could smell propane in the basement. I thought, that's odd. And I walked up the stairs in the kitchen. I could smell it in the house
Yeah.
and didn't realize what it was because it smelled like rotted food. And I opened up one piece of mail, and it was a candle that one of my vision board coaching clients had sent me. And I thought I should light the candle to cover the smell of that rotten food. And something shiny distracted me, and I didn't do it. I put it down. And then a half hour later, I looked at the stove and realized one of the burners was open and that the house was indeed full of propane. We would have blown it right off the foundation.
Oh my, I've got goosebumps again. Oh my.
Yeah. So she did that. The 2 mornings later, as I was washing dishes, she appeared as a cardinal in the backyard, which I hadn't seen in months,
Hmm.
looking out the window. And just about 4 weeks ago, of course, she had bought some Christmas gifts already that were in the house. A whole bunch more stuff got delivered while we were gone. I had boxes and boxes and boxes. I returned a lot of stuff, some stuff I couldn't return. There was one gift of 2 bottles of olive oil. And I'm thinking, who is this for? Who is this for? Who is this for? And I thought, she would always get something cooking related for her boss's husband, who does all the cooking at their home.
Hmm.
And I said, maybe it's for Craig. And then I thought, I don't know. I'll just give it to one of the neighbors. And as soon as I said that and started walking down the stairs, the song that Alexa was playing at the time stopped dead. As soon as I said that, I'll just give it to the neighbors. And the song stopped. And I just looked up and go, okay, I'll give it to Craig. And I told Alexa to just start playing the song again. But
Wow.
that, some blinking lights,
Hmm.
actually gave myself food poisoning about 3 weeks ago, really, really badly, baking with some outdated macadamias. I didn't check the date.
Uh-oh.
And I was sick as a dog all night long. And almost every time I woke up to go into the bathroom, I heard a whoosh of air. It was like Tina was there in the room nudging me to get up.
Hmm.
It happened several times that night. And I
Yeah.
just felt like she was there, just kind of keeping an eye on me and looking after me.
Wow.
But there's been a lot of those moments where I feel her
Mhm.
here. And I've got 2 shelves on a 4 shelf unit upstairs in our living room, just dedicated to her. I've got the keepsake urn. I've got pictures of her that I had found, rocks from a few times we'd gone to the beach over the years.
Mm.
She gave me my Christmas gift early this year. We generally didn't do gifts for each other, but she got this piece of artwork done and framed, the silhouette of a house on a white background. And inside the shape of the house is a map of our town, and there's a heart exactly at the street address where our house is. It's at 2018 Steve and Tina, our first home. And she gave that to me 2 weeks before she passed.
Oh my
She didn't
gosh.
want to wait till Christmas. And I got home and I saw that and I just started bawling.
Yeah.
And I said, as long as I'm able, I'm going to keep this house because it's ours.
Yeah.
Because I think, and a dear friend who's very spiritual and into spiritual energy said, even if her brain didn't know she was dying, her soul did. And we had a lot of conversations about stuff like this that I didn't pick
Yeah.
up at that level because I didn't know. She had ischemic heart disease and hadn't gone to the doctor in 10 years.
Hmm.
And I didn't know. I'm not mad at her. I'm not mad at
Yeah.
God. I just always say, babe, you weren't supposed to leave me. I wish I had known.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have saved you.
Yeah. Oh, those woulda, coulda, shouldas,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they're there, but they don't really serve us. So, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. That's, I find it interesting. I love hearing stories about people who come back to us in some way, shape, or form, or who at least let us know their presence, right?
Yeah.
And I sensed a lot of frustration with that. My brother died unexpectedly. It's going to be 10 years this next month. And I kept waiting for that. I kept, because I knew everybody always shares stories like, oh, mom came back this and this happened. And I never, nothing. I got nothing for years and years and years and years. And then um, I realized there was one day he was really on my heart. And this was just like maybe 2 years ago. So this was 8 years after he had died. And he was, for some reason, he was just back in here again for no reason at all. I hadn't, nothing reminded me of him, but he just stuck his little face in my brain. And I looked out the window and there's a cardinal on the tree right outside our house. And I was like, okay, you are here.
Yeah.
And I have to want, and that's me. Maybe he's was here the whole time and I just didn't open myself up to see him.
Yeah.
So, because there's a lot of unresolved things around his death. And yeah, but he's made himself known to me a few times now, and usually through cardinals.
Yeah. And I had somebody tell me recently that it can take up to a year for
Hmm.
somebody who has passed to appear to
Hmm.
you. And when I explained all the things that I have noticed and seen,
Yeah.
she said, there's somebody helping her to do that.
Oh,
So, because she wants to communicate with you.
yeah.
So, it could be my dad who passed away 6.5 years ago,
Yeah.
who adored Tina. Oh my
Oh,
gosh. My family instantly called her Tina in law
oh,
right from the get go because my sister's name is Christine and we had always called her Tina. So it became, Tina and Tina in law.
Tina-in-law.
So
Oh,
my family was
that's,
just devastated when I lost Tina. When we lost Tina because
yeah.
she was instantly family.
Yeah.
My family loved her from day one and she loved my family.
Oh, good. Oh, I love hearing that, but I'm obviously so sorry that it had to be this way.
Yeah.
But at least your family is supportive and loved her too. So, doesn't make it easier, but still
No.
beautiful. Um, all right. So I have a little tradition on my podcast where when we get closer to the end, we still got a few minutes here. When we get closer to the end, I pull a card at random from the death deck. I don't
Sure.
know if you've seen this before, but it's just a
No, I
deck.
haven't. I
Oh, I
haven't, but
love
I'm
this is
I'm fascinated by stuff like this. I love this.
it's a very, very large deck of cards, and they're all just like conversation starter questions regarding death and dying. So I'm going to pull one at random. I'm going to let you answer it, and then I will answer it. This one's easy. And I have a fun story with this. So, and you might too. I know the answer to this already. Have you ever seen somebody's cremated remains outside of an urn?
Yes, because my family had the option of each getting their own keepsake urns,
Hmm.
and I had possession of the ashes. And
Hmm.
so I filled them at our kitchen table using one of our measuring spoons. And I had to laugh because Tina would be rolling her eyes, but she would think this is funny. When I saw her ashes, I went, "Hey, babe, you're still blonde." That was the color of the ashes, a bright yellow,
Oh,
which is
wow.
such a life giving, joyful color.
Hmm.
I don't know if everyone is that way, but it,
Yeah.
it brought me. joy to see that because I wasn't sure how I'd be able to handle that situation,
Yeah.
but I did.
It's interesting because I've heard so many people when I've asked this question of other people, other folks have talked about cremated remains, and there's a lot of people that have the ick factor, like, oh, why would I want to look at that?
Yeah.
And my cat died. I had to put my cat down. I was up 2021, so about 4 years ago. And I've told this story in the show before, but I love sharing this. She was almost 20 years old when she died. Very old. Oh yeah, she lived for the longest time.
Yeah.
And she still had the first toy I ever bought her. She still had it. And that was her favorite toy. Every other toy was great, but this thing was always with her. She carried it around the house in her mouth. She slept with it. It was a ratty, like, ball of nothing at that point that had a like little bell inside of it that stopped ringing. It just clacked at that point. And but that was her baby. We called it her baby. And she would give it to you sometimes. It was just too precious. And when I had her put down, I asked the vet who came to our house, I'm like, can you please have this cremated with her? It's her baby. And he was so reverent with it. He kind of tucked it in so she was holding it in her paws when he took her. And when I got her ashes back, I wanted to look at them. And plus, I bought like a little necklace that I could put some of the ashes in. So I opened up the bag and I shit you not, pardon my French, right on top, there was a little bell. The little metal bell was there. So A, I know those were really her ashes. And B, I think that was her way of being like, it's okay, I'm still here.
Yeah. Wow. What a gift for that person to do that for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I will always shout out to Lap of Love. They came to, because they do in-home euthanasia. They came to the house. The
Yeah.
person they sent was so kind
Yeah.
and so respectful because she was very fearful, especially of men, and it was a male vet. But she was, unbeknownst to any of us, she was totally cool with him. It was like she knew why he was there and was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
He was so respectful, so kind, and gave us all the time we needed, took such precious care of her. So shout out to them. Yeah. All right. Steve, this has been amazing. I'm going to give you a few minutes if you have anything else you want to share, but also please tell my listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you if they so choose.
Sure. You can find me nice and easy online at Steve Gamlin speaker.com. And on Facebook and LinkedIn and social media is generally where you can find me. It's Steve Gamlin, Gamlin. And one thing that I suggest to people, if you're in a relationship now, if you want to reduce some of the pain that you're going to feel someday, understand your own love language and understand the love language of your partner and speak in those languages as often as you can. It's one thing when somebody knows your love language. It's another thing when they're willing to speak it fluently. And that's how you get to be in love head over heels for 6,386 days.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ah, I got chills again. Ah, thank you. Thank you, Steve, so much for sharing your story to my listeners. Thank you so much for your time. I genuinely appreciate this.
Thank you very much. Honored to be invited. And I hope it's been of value to your listeners.
Okay, another huge thank you to Steve so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. Oh my gosh, just so beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, so if you want to find Steve, his information is in the description for the show. He also, mentioned it. You can find his website there, his LinkedIn, and please connect with him. He's such a cool guy. So, and if you ever need a speaker for your event, give him a call because, like I said, totally awesome dude. Steve, thank you again so much for sharing your story. And once again, don't forget to check out my podcast page on my website. See if you want to get some merch. Support me on Patreon. You can find me on Substack. I'm not doing the socials anymore. They're still there if you want to look at my old social media stuff, but I am not really posting content there anymore. So you can follow me on Substack if you like. And I'm Nikki the Death Doula there and everywhere else I can think of. So, but mainly you can find pretty much anything you need for me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in this week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, And grief doesn't always have to suck. And you can get that on a t-shirt now. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.